We are live a few seconds early.
And in color. I am old new dude. He is,
Richard York, Asher's Trueborn son.
and we have internet. Still working on the lighting situation.
Huzzah.
So you have to forgive me for being a little bit more shaded than normal. We had a very good day in the house once Wi-Fi got here. So I'm very happy. You don't have to look at or you don't have to not see my back door anymore. I am in the man wall and ready and rearing to go. As usual, we start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I will jump in with my stupid stuff. So take it away, Richard.
Storm 3, Arya 1. Nymeria gives us some more arm sacrifice tier Great Wolf symbolism, and George gives us lots of long night symbolism.
Yes.
No more nipples. What's that? All right. The sky was this is a fairly short chapter. So even in Storm, where things are incredibly fast paced, George takes his time with the reintroducing the characters, and so you get a short chapter of this is who this point of view is, this is who they're with, this is what they're doing, this is what's going on, and that's largely what this chapter is. But lots of long night symbolism, and certainly ends with some of the traditional tier symbolism with the great wolf taking an arm.
Yes.
The sky was as black as the walls of Harrenhal behind them, and the rain fell soft and steady, muffling the sound of their horses' hooves and running down their faces. They rode north, away from the lake, following a rutted farm road across the torn fields and into the woods and streams. Arya took the lead, kicking her stolen horse to a brisk, heedless trot until the trees closed in around her. Hot Pie and Gendry followed as best they could. Wolves howled off in the distance, and she could hear Hot Pie's heavy breathing. No one spoke. From time to time, Arya glanced over her shoulder to make sure the two boys had not fallen too far behind, and to see if they were being pursued. They would be, she knew. She'd stolen 3 horses from the stables and a map and a dagger from Roose Bolton's own solar, and killed a guard on the postern gate, slitting his throat when he knelt to pick up the worn iron coin that Jack and Hagar had given her. Someone would find him lying dead in his own blood, and then the hue and cry would go up. They would wake Lord Bolton and search Harrenhal from cradle to cellar, and when they did, they would find the map and the dagger missing, along with some swords from the armory, bread and cheese from the kitchens, a baker boy, apprentice smith, and a cupbearer called Nan, or Weasel, or Ari, depending on who you asked. The Lord of the Dreadfort would not come after them himself. Roose Bolton would stay abed, his pasty flesh dotted with leeches, giving commands in his whispery, soft voice. His man Walton might lead the hunt, the one they called Steelshanks, for the greaves he always wore on his long legs. Or perhaps it would be slobbery Vargo Hoat and his sellswords, who named themselves the Brave Companions. Others called them Bloody Mummers, though never to their faces. And sometimes the footmen, for Lord Vargo's habit of cutting off the hands and feet of men who displeased him.
I got a quick thing on that.
Yep.
We are told over and over again that they chop hands and feet off and all that kind of stuff. And the last time that it's actually probably the first time and the last time that we see this is when he takes Jaime. Now, there is a theory out there that they were created by Oberyn Martell,
or Doran Martell, but yeah.
Yeah. The chopping of the hands and the feet were to establish a reason why, if they eventually got a hold of Jaime, why they would take his sword hand.
Right.
And once that's done, we don't see them do that anymore. They bring in all those Northmen. All of them have their hands and feet.
Well, I mean, that's actually looked at as suspicious. So Arya implies that they normally do take off their hands and feet, and it's supposed to be kind of suspicious that the Northmen arrived with none of them maimed, because they're working with Vargo Hoat to overthrow the Lannisters and their hold on Harrenhal.
Right. Well, I'm saying that what you even hear it from Qyburn, that they do take hands and feet, and the fact that they did get a hold of Jaime, they did take his sword hand, so he can't defend Tyrion or fight against Prince Oberon, that they would have to actually go to the mountain to do it. The 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 reason that they did all of that is done, and now that it's done, they don't have to do it anymore.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. It is
Yeah.
now they apparently already had this reputation, right? Because Jamie seems to be aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they've been doing this for a while. But your point is that getting that reputation may have even been a long-term, given Duran and his long-term plans. It may have been part of some sort of Dornish master plan, long-term type thing. Absolutely, it's possible. And as I like to say, George likes ambiguity, and there are multiple correct interpretations. And George confirming one interpretation is correct does not rule out the alternative interpretation.
Yes.
If they catch us, he'll cut off our hands and feet, speaking of, Arya thought, and then Roose Bolton will peel the skin off us. She was still dressed in her page's garb, and on the breast over her heart was sewn Lord Bolton's sigil, the flayed man of the Dreadfort. So it's interesting that Arya really does believe that Roose will flay her. She's been around Roose for a long time. Makes you wonder if he has, in fact, flayed some people.
Yeah, that's
anyway, true. He certainly has a lot of experience with that, and she's been serving him for a while, so it seems feasible. On the other hand, she's probably also heard old man stories, so
Yeah.
Could it be ambiguous? Anyway, every time she looked back, she half expected to see a blaze of torches pouring out the distant gates of Harrenhal or rushing along the tops of its huge high walls, but there was nothing. Harrenhal slept on until it was lost in darkness and hidden behind the trees. So the term "lost in darkness and hidden behind the trees" is some nice long night symbolism associating the Weird Woods with the long night.
Yeah. The guard at that gate, chances are he's not going to be found until morning, or
right.
the depending on if there is another changing of the guard type situation.
Yeah. I don't know that we have any idea how far behind they are when they get caught at the end of this chapter. I want to maybe look for see if there's any clues that
yeah.
I don't know. It's actually,
I think it's at the stream, isn't it?
Well, even if Arya crosses multiple streams, but even if we hear the wolves, that could still be the fact that Arya sometimes hears them when they're not actually that close because of her bond. Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see if there's any, perhaps some ambiguity implying that they may have been closing in on them versus, anyway.
Yeah. Well, not only that though. I mean, a wolf's howl, like I would think a lion's roar, would carry quite far.
One thing I've always wondered is does George know that that traveling multi-day distances, it's debatable whether being on foot might actually be faster than being on horse, because there have been races between horses and humans, and when they're long distance, the humans tend to win. So if you were, let's say you were a Night's Watchman at the beginning of the story who was well, I think that if you're a Night Watchman at the beginning of the story and you manage to get back to the wall, that whether or not you're able to coherently communicate what happened, the job of the Night's Watch would be to get you to Castle Black on the good side of the wall to be debriefed. Right. I believe that. And it would be then trivial for you to desert because you're on the good side of the wall at Castle Black. And that if you were running south from there, that if you're running for multiple days, a person that motivated, probably in reasonably good shape, is probably faster than somebody on a horse. If you're talking about multiple day journey with only one horse. Now, if you're able to change horses as John does on his way to Castle Black and so forth, no doubt that's faster. No doubt. Well, I mean, galloping and changing horses and galloping again, way faster than a human. But
I bring up a movie called The Eagle with Channing Tatum, and it's about the Legion with the in Britain, all this kind of stuff. But the thing that stuck out of my head, and I just thought of it when you said that, is there are places that humans can go that horses can't.
Yeah, that's true too.
That they were talking about the the Thins or whatever it is. I forget what it is.
Justice,
The
that's currently
Britain.
on Netflix.
Yeah, it is. That's what made me think of it too. That that the people that were pursuing them would be on foot, and he's like, "You've never seen them run. They can go places that we have to avoid. They will catch us." Meaning the
Right,
people on
right,
foot will catch the people on horse.
right. And as I said, that's realistic. That's actually what would happen. And eventually, the horse is just going to run out of stamina, and it can't sweat, and it can't recover as fast as a human.
Yeah, and I get a 50-yard dash. Human, a actual runner can beat a horse in a 50-yard dash too, which is
Now, it
completely
takes them a little
different.
while to get up to speed. Yeah.
Yeah,
But there's a pretty big intermediate distance there where the horse is faster.
yeah. Right there. Between 50 yards and yeah,
and basically a day's run.
yeah,
Basically anywhere between there, and the horse is going to smoke the human.
yeah.
Anyway,
Well, I can't say anything. My running days are far behind me.
yeah, I'm not claiming that I could do that. I'm just saying
Yeah,
that some people in good shape can do that.
yeah.
When they crossed the first stream, Arya turned her horse aside and led them off the road, following the twisting course of the water for a quarter mile, before finally scrambling out and up a stony bank. If the hunters brought dogs, that might throw them off the scent, she hoped. They could not stay on the road. There is death on the road, she told herself. Death on all the roads. So we mentioned this with Brandon Rickon, but according to Mark Rober, the water would not prevent hunting hounds from following your scent. Although George might have been misled by Bugs Bunny into believing the water could work.
Well,
Run the
also,
horse till it gasses, then run yourself. Yeah, actually, Jeff, that's obviously correct. Is that you managed to get best of both worlds, right? You should take off at reasonably high speed. I don't know if you'll get further trotting the horse or galloping the horse. Probably, I'm guessing trotting. Certainly, I would rather trot anyway because galloping is hard and trotting is
yeah.
pretty easy.
Don't let the cowboy hat fool you. I don't know anything about horses, so yeah.
Galloping's hard. I know that much.
Yeah, that much. Yeah, I've fallen off a couple of horses, so yeah, the gallop is a different thing.
Yeah. In fact, here in a minute when Hot Pie's horse bolts, I'm wondering, would he really be able to hold on? Because I wouldn't.
Yeah. Also, if they brought the dogs, wouldn't that slow them down? The horses could move a lot faster without the dogs trying to track the scent. And
yeah, that's a good question. Would it be slow for a person with hunting dogs to track them? Yeah, they may never catch them actually if they were doing that.
Yeah.
Gendry and Hot Pie did not question her choice. Because they would keep moving, right? And like you said, they're probably moving faster than the hunting dogs are.
Yeah.
Gendry and Hot Pie did not question her choice. She had the map, after all, and Hot Pie seemed almost as terrified of her as of the men who might be coming after them. He had seen the guard she'd killed. It's better if he's scared of me, she told herself. That way he'll do like I say, instead of something stupid. So characters tell themselves when they're trying to convince themselves of something they realize might not be true. It's better to be feared than loved, according to Cersei and Machiavelli.
There you go.
She should be more frightened herself, she knew. She was only 10, a skinny girl on a stolen horse with a dark forest ahead of her and men behind who would gladly cut off her feet. Yet somehow she felt calmer than she ever had in Harrenhal. The rain had washed the guard's blood off her fingers. She wore a sword across her back. Wolves were prowling through the dark like lean gray shadows, and Arya Stark was unafraid. Fear cuts deeper than swords, she whispered under her breath, the words that Ciro Farrell had taught her, and Jaqen's words too, Valar Morghulis. So lumping the words together that Ciro Farrell had taught her and Jaqen's words too makes it almost sound like Ciro could be Jaqen. Yeah. It's almost as if these books are intended to be ambiguous with multiple correct interpretations.
Yeah, this is true. Also, without the high halls that are so monstrously thick walls of Harrenhal, she is unfeathered. True her connection to Nymeria.
It does make it sound like she's like the way she lumps being with the wolves around her into feeling good. It sure sounds like that's what's going on.
Yeah. I think that even though it's mentioned in the middle that that's probably the primary reason that she is feeling so calm and unafraid is her connection to Nymeria at this moment.
Right. The rain stopped and started again, and stopped once more and started, but they had good cloaks to keep the water off. Arya kept them moving at a slow, steady pace. Yeah, that's a good idea when you're on horses. It was too black beneath the trees to ride any faster. The boys were no horsemen, neither one, and the soft broken ground was treacherous with half-buried roots and hidden stones. They crossed another road, its deep ruts filled with runoff, but Arya shunned it. Up and down the rolling hills she took them, through brambles and briars and tangles of underbrush, along the bottoms of narrow gullies where branches heavy with wet leaves slapped at their faces as they passed. You get a lot of this concept of plants attacking people too, right?
Yeah.
Which is arguably similar to the long night symbolism and claiming that the trees are sort of responsible. In 1901, Beasley Reese raced a horse to prove he was the fastest man in the NFL over 220 yards, and he won.
Oh, wow.
Wow, 220 yards. Wow. Okay, so maybe some humans can beat horses in the intermediate distance.
There you go. That's not a short distance either.
No, that's I mean, you look at the time of that's basically 200 meters, and you look at the time of 220 yards to about 200 meters, and you look at the times the record times of 200 meters, and they're pretty close to the record times of 100 meters, but the part of the reason that the 100-meter time is what it is the start time, right? You're starting from zero, and it takes you a while to get up to speed. And so yeah, it's almost a sprint distance, but it's sort of the edge of that, right?
Well,
anyway.
Where the human gets the horse is the start off. A professional NFL player and track star, anyone of that caliber, within 2 steps, they're at full speed. They're at their max within 2 steps of the takeoff. And it takes a horse a little bit longer.
You've used some time up there in those 2 steps, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the old riddle. If you're trying to get somewhere an average 60 miles an hour, and you go the first half at 30 miles an hour, how fast do you need to go for the second half? And the answer is faster than the speed of light, because you've already used up all your time.
Yeah. But the horse takes quite a bit longer to get going.
Yeah, so he was still able to hold that lead through 220 yards.
Yeah.
Gendry's mare lost her footing in the mud once, going down hard on her hindquarters and spilling him from the saddle. But neither horse nor rider was hurt, and Gendry got that stubborn look on his face and mounted right up again. Not long after, they came upon 3 wolves devouring the corpse of a fawn. When Hot Pie's horse caught the scent, he shied and bolted. 2 of the wolves fled as well, but the third raised his head and bared his teeth, prepared to defend his kill. Back off, Arya told Gendry. Slow, so you don't spook him. They edged their mounts away until the wolf and his feast were no longer in sight. Only then did she swing about to ride after Hot Pie, who was clinging desperately to the saddle as he crashed through the trees. As I said, I don't really think that's what would happen, but okay.
Yeah, I'd have been off within the first couple of steps.
Later, they passed through a burned village, threading their way carefully between the shells of blackened hovels and past the bones of a dozen dead men hanging from a row of apple trees. LML would probably say this is what he calls last hero math, right? Anytime there's a dozen, he thinks about the dozen companions of the last hero.
Yeah.
When Hot Pie saw them, he began to pray, a thin whispered plea for the mother's mercy, repeated over and over. Arya looked up at the fleshless dead in their wet, rotting clothes and said her own prayer. Sir Gregor, it went, Dunson, Polliver, Wrath the Sweetling, the Tickler and the Hound, Sir Ilyn, Sir Meryn, King Joffrey, Queen Cersei. She ended with Father Morghulis, touched Jockin's coin where it nestled under her belt, and then reached up and plucked an apple from among the dead men as she rode beneath them. It was mushy and overripe, but she ate it, worms and all. So Hot Pie is the Sam of this group and saying the same prayer, right? He's praying to the mother over and over, and later on we'll see Sam doing this. That was the day without a dawn. Slowly the sky lightened around them, but they never saw the sun. Black turned to gray, and colors crept timidly back into the world. The soldier pines were dressed in somber greens, the broadleafs in russets and faded golds already beginning to brown. They stopped long enough to water the horses and eat a cold, quick breakfast, ripping apart a loaf of the bread that Hot Pie had stolen from the kitchens, and passing chunks of hard yellow cheese from hand to hand. So lots of long night symbolism in this chapter. That was the day without a dawn.
Yeah.
Do you know where we're going? Gendry asked her. North, said Arya. Hot Pie peered around uncertainly. Which way is north? She used her cheese to point. That way. But there's no sun. How do you know? From the moss. See how it grows mostly on one side of the trees? That's south. What do we want with the north? Gendry wanted to know. The trident. Arya unrolled the stolen map to show them. See? Once we reach the trident, all we need to do is follow it upstream till we come to River Run here. Her finger traced the path. It's a long way, but we can't get lost so long as we keep to the river. Hot Pie blinked at the map. Which one is River Run? River Run was painted as a castle tower in the fork between the flowing blue lines of two rivers, the Tumblestone and the Red Fork. There, she touched it. River Run, it reads. You can read writing? He said to her, wonderingly, as if she'd said she could walk on water. She nodded. We'll be safe once we reach River Run. We will? Why? Because River Run is my grandfather's castle, and my brother Rob will be there, she wanted to say. She bit her lip and rolled up the map. We just will, but only if we get there. She was the first one back in the saddle. It made her feel bad to hide the truth from Hot Pie, but she did not trust him with her secret. Gendry knew, but that was different. Gendry had his own secret, though even he didn't seem to know what it was. That day, Arya quickened their pace, keeping the horses to a trot as long as she dared, and sometimes spurring to a gallop when she spied a flat stretch of field before them. I don't think that would work. But anyway, not because of Arya couldn't do it. I'm sure Arya can gallop. I just don't think they could keep up with her.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was seldom enough, though. The ground was growing hillier as they went. The hills were not high, nor especially steep, but there seemed to be no end to them, and they soon grew tired of climbing up one and down the other, and found themselves following the lay of the land, along stream beds and through a maze of shallow wooded valleys where the trees made a solid canopy overhead. So you could say the trees are blotting out the sky.
Yes.
From time to time, she sent Hot Pie and Gendry on while she doubled back to try to confuse their trail, listening all the while for the first sign of pursuit. Too slow, she thought to herself, chewing her lip. We're going too slow. They'll catch us for certain. Once, from the crest of a ridge, she spied dark shapes crossing a stream in the valley behind them, and for half a heartbeat she feared that Roose Bolton's riders were on them. When she looked again, she realized they were only a pack of wolves. She cupped her hands around her mouth and howled down at them. Ahoo! Ahoo! Sammy's looking at me. When the largest of the wolves lifted its head and howled back, the sound made Arya shiver. So I certainly understand people claiming that Arya would recognize a direwolf or Nymeria, but I think George likes ambiguity with multiple correct interpretations, and so I don't think it's wrong to interpret Arya's encounters with wolves or with especially large wolves as Nymeria. But I certainly understand the interpretation that they're not as well. So anyway.
Yeah.
By midday, Hot Pie had begun to complain. His arse was sore, he told them, and the saddle was rubbing him raw inside his legs. And besides, he had to get some sleep. I'm so tired, I'm going to fall off the horse. Arya looked at Gendry. If he falls off, who do you think will find him first? The wolves or the mummers? The wolves, said Gendry. Better noses. Hot Pie opened his mouth and closed it. He did not fall off his horse. The rain began again a short time later. They still had not seen so much as a glimpse of the sun. It was growing colder, and pale white mists were threading between the pines and blowing across the bare, burned fields. Gendry was having almost as bad a time of it as Hot Pie, though he was too stubborn to complain. He sat awkwardly in the saddle, a determined look on his face beneath his shaggy black hair, but Arya could tell he was no horseman. I should have remembered, she thought to herself. She'd been riding as long as she could remember. Ponies when she was little, and later horses. But Gendry and Hot Pie were city-born, and in the city, small folk walked. Yoren had given them mounts when he took them from King's Landing, but sitting on a donkey and plodding up the King's Road behind a wagon was one thing. Guiding a hunting horse through wild woods and burned fields was something else. She would make much better time on her own, Arya knew, but she could not leave them. They were her pack, her friends, the only living friends that remained to her. And if not for her, they would still be safe at Harrenhal. Gendry sweating in his forge and Hot Pie in the kitchens. If the mummers catch us, I'll tell them I'm Ned Stark's daughter and sister to the King of the North. I'll command them to take me to my brother and do no harm to Hot Pie and Gendry. They might not believe her, though, and even if they did, Lord Bolton was her brother's bannerman, but he frightened her all the same. I won't let them take us, she vowed silently, reaching back over her shoulder to touch the hilt of the sword that Gendry had stolen for her. I won't. Oops. I accidentally clicked off. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I won't. Where was I? Won't. So I'm going to scroll through here. fields, something else. I won't. There it is. Late that afternoon, they emerged from beneath the trees and found themselves on the banks of a river. Hot Pie gave a whoop of delight. The trident! Now all we have to do is go upstream, like you said. We're almost there. Arya chewed her lip. I don't think this is the trident. The river was swollen by the rain, but even so, it couldn't be much more than 30 feet across. She remembered the trident as being much wider. It's too little to be the trident, she told them. And we didn't come far enough. Yes, we did, Hot Pie insisted. We rode all day and hardly stopped at all. We must have come a long way. Let's have a look at that map again, said Gendry. Also, if you haven't heard, the writer's strike is over, so we will get the Jon Snow show now. Let's have a look at that map again, said Gendry. Arya dismounted, took out the map, unrolled it. The rain pattered against the sheepskin and ran off in rivulets. We're someplace here, I think, she said, pointing as the boys peered over her shoulders. But, said Hot Pie, that's hardly any ways at all. See, Harrenhal's there by your finger. You're almost touching it. And we rode all day. There's miles and miles before we reach the trident, she said. We won't be there for days. This must be some different river. One of these, see? She showed him some of the thinner blue lines the mapmaker had painted in, each with a name painted in fine script beneath it. The Dairy, the Green Apple, the Maiden, here, this one. The Little Willow, it might be that. Hot Pie looked from the line to the river. It doesn't look so little to me. Gendry was frowning as well. The one you're pointing at runs into that other one, see? The Big Willow, she read. The Big Willow, then. See, and the Big Willow runs into the trident. So we could follow one to the other. We need to go downstream, not up. Only if this river isn't the Little Willow, if it's this other one here, Ripple Down Rill, Arya read. See, it loops around and flows down toward the lake back to Harrenhal. He traced the line with a finger. We have to know which river this is, declared Gendry in his stubbornest voice. We have to know. Well, we don't. The map might have names written beside the blue lines, but no one had written a name on the riverbank. We won't go up or downstream, she decided, rolling up the map. We'll cross and keep going north, like we were. Can horses swim? Asked Hot Pie. It looks deep, Ari. What if there are snakes? Are you sure we're going north? Asked Gendry. All these hills, if we got turned around. The moss on the trees. He pointed to a nearby tree. That tree's got moss on 3 sides, and that next one has no moss at all. We could be lost just riding around in a circle. We could be, said Arya, but I'm going to cross the river anyway. You can come or you can stay here. She climbed back in the saddle, ignoring the both of them. If they didn't want to follow, they could find Riverrun on their own. The more likely the mummers would just find them. She had to ride a good half-mile along the bank before she finally found a place where it looked as though it might be safe to cross. And even then, her mare was reluctant to enter the water. The river, whatever its name, was running brown and fast, and the deep part in the middle came up past the horse's belly. Water filled her boots, but she pressed in her heels all the same and climbed out on the far bank. From behind, she heard splashing and the mare's nervous whinny. They followed then. Good. She turned to watch as the boys struggled across and emerged dripping beside her. It wasn't the trident, she told them. It wasn't. The next river was shallower and easier to ford. That one wasn't the trident either, and no one argued with her when she told them they would cross it. Dusk was settling as they stopped to rest the horses once more and share another meal of bread and cheese. I'm cold and wet, Hot Pie complained. We're a long way from Harrenhal now, for sure. We could have us a fire. No, Arya and Gendry both said at the exact same instant. Hot Pie quailed a little. Arya gave Gendry a sideways look. He said it with me like Jon used to do back in Winterfell. She missed Jon Snow the most of all her brothers. So there's definitely a strong connection between these two.
Yeah.
Could we sleep at least? Hot Pie asked. I'm so tired, Ari, and my arse is sore. I think I've got blisters. You'll have more than that if you're caught, she said. We've got to keep going. We've got to. But it's almost dark and you can't even see the moon. The moon and sun are being blocked by clouds like the long night. Get back on your horse. Plodding along at a slow walking pace as the light faded around them, Arya found her own exhaustion weighing heavy on her. She needed sleep as much as Hot Pie, but they dare not. If they slept, they might open their eyes to find Vargo Hoat standing over them with Shagwell the Fool and faithful Urswick and Rorge and Biter and Septon Ut and all his other monsters. Yet after a while, the motion of her horse became as soothing as the rocking of a cradle, and Arya found her eyes growing heavy. She let them close, just for an instant, then snapped them wide again. I can't go to sleep, she screamed at herself silently. I can't. She knuckled at her eye and rubbed it hard to keep it open, clutching the reins tightly and kicking her mount to a canter. but neither she nor the horse could sustain the pace. It was only a few moments before they fell back to a walk again, and a few more until her eyes closed a second time. This time they did not open quite so quickly. When they did, she found that her horse had come to a stop and was nibbling at a tuft of grass while Gendry was shaking her arm. You fell asleep, he told her. I was just resting my eyes. You were resting them a long while then. Your horse was wandering in a circle, but it wasn't until she stopped that I realized you were sleeping. Hot Pie's just as bad. He rode into a tree limb and got knocked off, and you should have heard him yell. Even that didn't wake you up. You need to stop and sleep. I can keep going as long as you can, she yawned. Liar, he said. You keep going if you want to be stupid, but I'm stopping. I'll take the first watch. You sleep. What about Hot Pie? Gendry pointed. Hot Pie was already on the ground, curled up beneath his cloak on a bed of damp leaves and snoring softly. He had a big wedge of cheese in one fist, but it looked as though he had fallen asleep between bites. It was no good arguing, Arya realized. Gendry had the right of it. The mummers will need sleep too, she told herself, hoping it was true. She was so weary it was a struggle even to get down from the saddle, but she remembered to hobble her horse before finding a place beneath a beech tree. The ground was hard and damp. She wondered how long it would be before she slept in a bed again, with hot food and a fire to warm her. The last thing she did before closing her eyes was unsheath her sword and lay it down beside her. Sir Gregor, she whispered, yawning. Dunson, Polliver, Raff the Sweetling, the Tickler, and the Tickler, the Hound. Her dreams were red and savage. The mummers were in them, four at least, a pale Yseni and a dark, brutal axeman from Ib, a scarred Dothraki horse lord called Igo, and a Dorishman whose name she never knew. On and on they came, riding through the rain in rusty mail and wet leather, swords and axe clanking against their saddles. They thought they were hunting her, she knew with all the strange sharp certainty of dreams, but they were wrong. She was hunting them. She was no little girl in the dream. She was a wolf, huge and powerful. When she emerged from beneath the trees in front of them, bared her teeth in a low, rumbling growl, she could smell the rank stench of fear from horse and man alike. The little Stenny's mount reared and screamed in terror, and the others shouted at one another in man talk. Before they could act, the other wolves came hurtling from the darkness and the rain, a great pack of them, gaunt and wet and silent. The fight was short but bloody. The hairy man went down as he unslung his axe. The dark one died stringing an arrow, and the pale man from Lys tried to bolt. Brothers and sisters ran him down, turning him again and again, coming at him from all sides, snapping at the legs of his horse and tearing the throat from the rider when he came crashing to the earth. We've got some neck symbolism there with the traditional animal sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Only the belled man stood his ground. His horse kicked in the head of one of her sisters, and he cut another almost in half with his curved, silvery claw as his hair tinkled softly. Filled with rage, she leapt onto his back, knocking him headfirst from his saddle. Her jaws locked on his arm as they fell, her teeth sinking through the leather and wool and soft flesh. When they landed, she gave a savage jerk with her head and ripped the limb loose from his shoulder. Exulting, she shook it back and forth in her mouth, scattering the warm red droplets amidst the cold black rain. Up
They got
next,
what they deserve.
Up next, Storm 4, Tyrion 1. Casterly Rock? Never.
Never, never, never. There's not a lot of distance covered in this chapter, but it's still pretty good.
Uh-oh. We lost you for a second. You said it's a pretty good chapter, and then you switched sides.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't cover a lot of distance actually.
Well, I guess technically it covers a lot of distance in terms of travel, but not much in terms of the plot moving forward.
Yeah, but it's still a pretty good chapter. I mean, you see again the connection with the wolves, with Nymeria. It's Arya. It's still a pretty good chapter.
Pod is wondering if there's a Valyrian steel weapon just lying on the ground in the Riverlands. Interesting.
Only Billy ministered his ground. His horse kicked in the head of one of his sisters, and he cut.
Well, the point being, she took him out, right?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to read the curved silvery claw.
We're definitely told that is this the Dothraki that we're told has a Valyrian steel, or no? You know what? That might be the one that actually cuts Jaime later. So it might not be.
I don't know.
It might actually be that it's what's his name, the Fat, the Dothraki. Isn't that right?
I can't remember.
His name, but
We
so no,
appreciate it.
I don't think so. It's silvery, like you said. It's a silvery blade. It's not
Dark.
a dark, almost black blade.
Yeah.
So probably not. Interesting thought though.
Yes.
Pauses. I'll check. I thought it was him.
Not a problem.
I don't think so. I think it's what's his name? The Fat. I can't remember.
I have no idea.
You know what I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah,
There's a Dothraki that's I think it is a Dothraki with an Eric that it might even be the Valyrian steel Eric that comes off Jaime's hand.
Which would be fitting that a Valyrian steel sword cuts off Jaime's hand and then
Zolo the Fat, that's it. You're right, Lizzie. It's Zolo the Fat. That's who I was thinking of. And I think he might be the one with the Valyrian steel. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway.
We'll find out.
Up next, Storm 4, Tyrion 1.
All right.
Anyway, as we said, most of these first chapters, and that's part of why I'm somewhat, I'm a little less concerned than most people are at the pace of the Winds of Winter sample chapters, because this is how he starts the books. Although it's a little concerning that they've given us arguably that they've given us 2 Arion chapters, and they're kind of both like that. They're kind of both like nothing much happens.
Well, I mean, that might mean that he's definitely setting up all the crap that's going to happen in the pages to come. I mean, you never know.
As we've said, it sure seems like Ariana is the one that's got the second dance symbolism, and in many ways she resembles Rhaenyra. but in another way she kind of resembles the Hightowers, in that she tried to push the claim of the princess ahead of her own. So anyway, I do like the idea that the dance is going to be Aegon and Arianne against Trystane and Myrcella, because it gives you that nice the son versus the older daughter war going on.
Excuse me. I know this is a short live stream, but I got a sick kid at the house today, so it kind of worked out pretty good for me. Yeah, he was up last night throwing up, so I'm extremely tired this morning or this afternoon. But I'm glad to be back on camera, even though I'm on the wrong side now. But
good to see you.
Yeah. I had to dust off the cowboy hat. I didn't wear it in the last 2 live streams because you couldn't see me.
Boo! Hope he feels better, says Lizzie.
Yeah. Yeah, he was laid on the couch earlier, so I got to go in there and check on him. But I appreciate everybody. I'm glad we're back. Yeah.
Great to have you guys back. Thank you, Lizzie.
I'm extremely happy to have internet and get this ball rolling to keep things going the way they're supposed to be going. And excuse me. Sorry, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
We'll definitely throw in some references for you to count in the next one, Lizzie, because I think there's some opportunities to laugh at Tywin and his belief at who his children and who his grandchildren are.
Yeah. He told me that before we started, that there's not a lot of none. I'm like, well, you had so many in the last one that
was a key chapter.
All right, thank you, Jim. But all right. Friday, same bat time, same bat channel with Tyrion 1. Sounds and good. I appreciate everybody, you too, Richard, and y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Well, some bullshit. Well, I suppose I in referencing what's coming up, I've arguably alluded to it, so you could count an extra for that if you want.
All right. Y'all take care. We will see y'all Friday. Have a good day.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
Bye, Richard. Bye.